and East Copper Belt Province brings to you The Lens, a program designed to bring insightful information on economics, mining, education, health, tourism, agriculture, environmental issues, sports, entertainment, current affairs, and many issues affecting the well-being of society.
Welcome to The Lens. I'm your host, Penlop Chansa. On today's program, we are featuring the President of the Zambia Union of Government and Allied Workers, Mr. Muyaya Kabisa. Mr. Kabisa, welcome to The Lens.
Thank you very much.
To kickstart our program, I want to understand what is the mandate of the labor movement?
Well, the labor movement has twofold roles. The first role is to ensure that the conditions of workers in their workplaces are conditions that are able to sustain them and their families. In this, we are talking of, the salaries, the remuneration. Is it good enough? And then we are talking also of the working environment. Are the employees working in a good environment? The other aspect, you go beyond that. You look at the social and also political interests, social, economic, and political interests of the employees. Workers are citizens. And as citizens, whatever happens in the communities, whatever the government does and so forth affects them. So the unions have a role to ensure that the political interests of employees are taken care of. Also, the social welfare of employees is also taken care of. Thank you. Okay,
so when you talk of that mandate, looking at a holistic picture, we have various unions in the country. Do you think our different unions are achieving that mandate?
Well, in Zambia, we can say we have not yet reached a level where all unions are performing the two roles. It's sad to note that most of the unions are concentrating on the traditional role. That is to ensure that the conditions of service at the workplace are conducive, dealing with aspects of, grievances, representing employees during the disciplinary processes. Yeah, that is where most of our unions are concentrating. There are very few unions that you can count on that have gone beyond to take interest in the welfare of employees out of the workplace. There are very few unions that have taken interest in participating fully in the governance of the country. So there is much that unions have to do in terms of looking at the non-traditional role of unions, that is representing the interests, political interests of employees, the social and economic interests of the employees.
Okay, I'll hold on a little bit to those gaps that you have mentioned in our labor movement in the country. I'll still get back to that. But I want to find out, how important is the labor movement to the realization of a country's economic agenda?
The labor movement plays a vital role. When you analyze the workplace, you find that actually the workplace just brings in two players. Though there is a silent player who is government, there are two players, the employer and the employee. In the private sector, I would say the owners of the businesses and then the employees who work for them. Now, the working class, produces the goods. They produce the services. And these goods and services are the ones that go to feed into the economy of a nation. So the labor movement has a very critical role in the sense that it manages the employees who, as we commonly say, turn the wheels of the economy. So the fact that trade unions have to ensure that the welfare of employees is sound, employees are not victimized, employees get the wage that is appropriate, it goes to adding to their contribution in the realization of a sound economy of a nation. So trade unions play a very, very important role. We can take, for instance, here on the Copper Belt, when we had issues to do with the mines, I think the mining unions applied themselves very well. They spoke in defense of the interests of the employees. But when you analyze that, you find that at the end of it all, they were saying they want these mines to begin operating effectively. They wanted production to commence. And this in itself is speaking on behalf of an economy. So the trade union movement plays a very, very vital role in that regard. Also, we can extend it to how we participate in shaping up the policies of the nation. Currently, we are debating the employment code. You may have heard that, employees are apprehensive as regards the amendments that were being proposed. Now, the business side, the other side, they want to, make amendments because they believe that the current law does not support business. So the trade unions themselves are speaking on behalf of the employees. Now, all this goes to create an environment that supports, production. So the contribution of the workers, the contribution of the employers, all go towards a good, economy for a nation. So the trade unions have a very, very important role in that regard.
Well explained. I'll still zero into your union, UG, the Zambia Union of Government and Allied Workers. How are you helping our country realize its economic agenda?
The Zambia Union of Government and Allied Workers subsists within the civil service or the public service. And you will realize that the public service is the one that drives government policy. The public service is the one that implements government policy. We have Ministry of Commerce, we have Ministry of Green Economy, Ministry of Mines, and so forth. These are, work areas where our members are found. So, as a union, we espouse a highly productive workplace. And we have come up with a program where we hold productivity sessions that aim at enhancing productivity in all the areas where we have membership. So when members are effectively working or when members are efficient, we know that government policy is being driven effectively. So our role as a union is to ensure that we have a team of civil servants that is professional, a team of civil servants that is productive, and a team of civil servants that is dedicated to duty. Because if government fails in that regard, then even those in the private sector, the ones who depend on government policy to do business, they will not be able to support the economy through the businesses that they are doing. So as a union, our involvement in creating a good working environment for those that drive government policy is a contribution towards the realization of a country that is economically sound.
Okay. Now, Mr. Kabisa, I'm sure you've been in the trade union for quite some time now. I want to find out, how would you describe the environment in the country in the last 3 years of the New Dawn administration?
The environment is good. the labor movement in Zambia has changed from that kind of militant, labor movement. Okay, we can say there used to be blind militancy years back. But what we have now, we have a team of men and women who look at constructive dialogue as the best way to resolving conflicts at the workplace, as the best way to, engaging for the sake of improved conditions of service. And this in itself is evidenced by the good industrial harmony that we have had in the last 3 years. We've had, certain, occurrences which, if at all the leaders of unions had not applied themselves, would have resulted into industrial unrest. Okay, we can talk of, the employment code that I referred to earlier. You may have heard that employees were mobilizing to resist it. But it is this constructive dialogue approach that has helped resolve that challenge. So the environment has been very good. I can say we enjoy a very cordial relationship with the Ministry of Labor. Whenever there is an issue, the ministry comes out and brings the stakeholders together. The Tripartite Consultative Labor Council has been holding meetings. I think we have held more meetings than before. And this in itself goes to creating a good, environment in the workplaces. And this in itself feeds into, the productivity that we've been talking about. So the last 3 years, it's been peaceful. Even after the negotiations, many people would have thought there would be, strikes and so forth. But the trade unions have relied very much on constructive dialogue, going back to the table and discussing all issues within. There is tension within the boardrooms when there are discussions, but that is not taken to the outside. So we expect that this will continue even in years to come.
Okay, Mr. Kabisa, I want to believe that the goal of each and every worker is to provide bread and butter on the table for their family, for themselves. Are your members happy?
Well, our members are not happy. But the beauty is that we all appreciate what we are going through. The desire of every employee is to have, salaries that can help them pay their rentals for those who are renting, salaries that can help them go to school, take their children to school, have food, and so forth. But you see, we are in an economy that cannot provide everything to the expectation of all. So we are not happy, but we can say that there is no time when we have gone without receiving that little that is due to us. We will be very happy if at all we get to a situation where our economy shapes up and, we come out of this situation where we have low disposable incomes and we get to a stage where employees can spend on what is essential and also remain with something to invest. Each one now is looking for an opportunity to invest. People are building, they are taking long to complete their, structures and so forth because of the little amounts of money they receive. We are not happy. We would want to get to a stage where we would be happy. And that is a stage where we would have a living wage, a wage that will be able to help us meet our needs.
Okay, so as workers, you're saying workers are not happy.
No.
Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Do we see any indicators that indicate that
Well,
there could be?
we were glad in that there was light at the end of the tunnel, but unfortunately, that light is going dim. The reason being the situation that we find ourselves in, the climatic conditions that are not favorable. Where the government would have reserved certain, resources to go to maybe enhancing the conditions of service for employees. In the face of a disaster declared, you expect that resources will be varied. Okay, resources will be varied to go to those critical areas which are emergency in nature. There are areas where people do not have food. Right now we are talking of, a drought that is affecting power generation. And this has ripple effects. Today we have 3 hours of power in our homes. That is where people are lucky. Okay? This in itself is evidence of the fact that even the businesses out there are affected. So if you had an employee who was maybe running a barber shop, they have to start thinking of using a genset. They have to, start thinking of buying petrol or diesel, or they have to plan for, the solar, systems and so forth. So that light is getting dim. We were on a very good trajectory in the economic recovery agenda of the country. We want to appeal to those who are overseeing these programs, the government in office, to enhance or to find a lot of means, a lot of ways to ensure that we don't fully get off the track. Okay? We should get back on track quickly. We were glad when we were following the visit of the president in China, the engagements that are there. When you listen to them, if all that is done, then we'll be able to get back to the position where we'll see that light again. But this light that we're seeing is getting dim because of the, climate change effects and because of also the external factors, the wars that are in other countries where we get our, oil and so forth. So we trust and believe that the government in office will be able to get us back to where we'll have that hope.
Okay, now, just like everyone else, what were your expectations as a labor movement when the new Dawn administration was being ushered into office? I'm sure the youths were expectant of job creation. As a labor movement, what were your expectations of the new Dawn government?
Well, our expectations were that the promises that were made would be fulfilled. There is one thing that we should know as, citizens. When you are speaking from outside something without knowing the inside, when you get inside, your perception of things may change. We have seen that the current government has, implemented some of the things that they've been talking about. And we have seen that some of the things have not been fulfilled. Some will not be fulfilled because, you see, it is not a situation where you expect all things to be equal. So our expectations were very high, but there are certain factors, intervening factors that have come in that have, thrown the focus off. We were earlier on talking of the climatic change. This in itself will have an impact, okay? We have seen the employment of teachers, health personnel and so forth, the mines being revived and so forth. This is a good thing. That goes into telling us that there was that desire and that desire was being realized. Now, these effects that are not, which are beyond the control of man. Natural, occurrences such as the climate changes I talked about are things that are inevitable. We don't plan for them. So some of the expectations have not been met. But let me point out one issue I think that the government should look at. We have to, get back to the level where we maintain the civil service professional. The head of state highly pronounced the, setting in place a professional civil service. We want to see this being fully realized. We still have challenges in some areas. We are glad that the National School of Government has been operationalized, and there will be those exams, public service exams, which go into maintaining professionalism. There is always a temptation. Everyone who has been in power knows that there's always a temptation on the side of the politicians to have their own people, because of maybe pressure from the cadres and so forth, to have their own people assume certain offices. But what we are saying is that the civil service must be left professional, because the civil service is what keeps the country. If we politicize the civil service, we will get to a stage where a country may not be governable, because everyone who come into office would want to have their own cadres, as civil servants. That in itself drives us to a failed state. I heard the comment from the former head of state that civil servants must be careful, they'll be followed into their homes and so forth. Well, we appreciate the fact that civil servants must be professional, but we become thrown aback when there are threats that accompany the call for professionalism. Okay? There are systems in the civil service that deal with, civil servants who are not performing to the expectations. There are systems of discipline in place. The code of ethics is also in place. And there are officers employed to ensure that every civil servant adheres to that. Now, when politics gets into the civil service to drive it, the challenge is that the civil servants now will begin to listen to who is in power or who is to come in power, and professionalism is lost. So we still want to emphasize that those who are in power right now, the UPND, and those political parties that desire to come in power, should all espouse professionalism in the civil service. They should all work towards making the civil service, professional. We want to see a stage where the district commissioners are professional civil servants, not cadres. Okay? So if we get to that stage, it was nearly so during the Kaunda's regime, where you have civil servants who are purely civil servants without any political thoughts. But what we see now, you can see a permanent secretary, behaving like a cadre. You can see, an opposition political whatever party, threatening, no, we are going to remove you from office and so forth. That is politics interfering with the civil service. So we have to attain that promise of professionalism. We expected this as trade unions. We should have a professional, civil service.
Thank you very much. Passionately spoken. Well, our dear viewers, if you're just joining us on The Lens today, we are featuring Zambia Union of Government and Allied Workers President, Mr. Kabisa. Now, Mr. Kabisa, I would want you to give a critique of how the new Dawn administration has performed in the eyes of you as a labor movement. And I think I will start with professionalism in the civil service. How have they performed?
Yeah, well, from our end, I think the new Dawn administration has tried. There are certain areas, yes, where they have to pick up, like where I said of ensuring that we maintain the civil service as professional as we, expect it to be. I talked of issues of, district commissioners. We thought that district commissioners would be professional civil servants, but that still has to be realized. So the performance has not been bad, but there is still more to be done. The people of this country, when they put in place a government, they expect that government to deliver. All that people need is food. They need shelter. They need health. And all these are issues that are not easy to attain. So the new Dawn administration, with the strides that they are doing, we are saying it is a positive move that is being taken, and we hope that there will be no much departure, even in the face of the, external factors that may, seem to be impeding that progress. We hope that there will be no much departure from, from the focus. The performance has not been bad. We've not had situations where cadres have gone into offices and beaten up civil servants, removed them, and so forth. And issues that were there in some cases, I think they were adequately addressed. Yeah.
All right. So the performance has been fair.
Yes, it's not been bad.
Not bad.
It's not been bad,
very
but we
good,
still expect more
fair.
to be done. Yeah.
Okay. So now, as a labor movement, what has been your contribution towards that?
As I said earlier, our role is to ensure that we have a good working environment for our members, and we have a productive working class. I can tell you the unions have done much in this country. You rarely hear of strikes. It's because of what the unions are doing in engaging with employees and in giving them feedback. Okay? It's because what the unions are doing, engaging the employers, engaging the government to ensure that anything that would impede, the economic aspirations of the country are, addressed. So our role basically is to ensure that we have a professional working class that lives up to its calling. Employees who are working hard. We have a lot of workers in this country who are working in very remote areas. Some of them do not have housing, but they are there because they want to provide a service. Okay? And our role as trade unions is to ensure that government quickly takes accommodation to those people. Some people are staying in grass-thatched houses, a civil servant in a grass-thatched house, That is sacrifice. So to maintain these people in those areas, to keep on giving a service under these, adverse conditions requires a trade union movement that engages and the trade union movement that gives hope. So our contribution is to ensure that we have a productive, working class.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Kabisa, I think you agree with me to think that Zambia as a country, we have a tremendous potential to become an economic hub, especially here in our region. I want to find out what role are you playing as a labor movement? What role are you playing to ensure that we get to that point? For example, what role are you playing to ensure that we double our gross domestic product?
We engage with government in various fora. I think one of the area where we are contributing positively is in the area of, legislation. As I said earlier, the employees are the ones that turn the wheels of the economy. Now, these employees are employees of people who are interested in profits. And people who are interested in profits want profit, and they would want to have lesser costs, okay, as they run their businesses. Now, how do they do that? Some will avoid paying their statutory obligations, okay? Some will want to remunerate, employees poorly. Some would want even to evade certain regulatory requirements. So it is been our role to ensure that companies that are not meeting their statutory obligations, ZRA remittance, that is taxes, social security aspects such as NAPSA, et cetera, we ensure that these are actually implemented by the employers. Now, we will not be able to meet our GDP expectations if at all we have companies that evade taxes. Okay, the other time we were discussing amendments to the NAPSA Act, okay, to try and see that there is compliance on the side of the employer, okay? How do we deal with employers who are violating the provisions of the Act? So that is a contribution to ensure that the regulations that we have given ourselves to grow our country are adhered to ensure that the employees themselves are also productive, and to ensure that the employees are remunerated positively or properly or decently so that they are able to produce the goods and the services.
Mr. Kabisa, you agree with me that for some time the civil service has had this tag of having workers whose attitude towards work is not very good. There are instances where in the civil service, for example, people are said to knock off earlier than the stipulated time, reporting late for work, and just laissez-faire kind of attitude. Now we have in office a president who has been preaching on the need for hard work, emphasizing on the need for hard work. What is your position as a labor movement on this score?
Yeah, when one is employed, first of all, they should know that they are employed to render a service. They are professionals, they are skillful, so they're expected to deliver. They should meet the expectations of the employer. So all our members, wherever they are, they're expected to meet the expectations of their office. Everyone who is employed has, a job description, and they have to adhere to that. Now, the tag of, laissez-faire attitude, reporting late, drunkenness, pilfering, and so forth, these are things that have been there, okay? But I can tell you that the trade union movement has taken a position that any employee who chooses to depart from the expectations, from their job descriptions, who chooses to work outside the code of ethics, will stand alone. We will not defend such employees because we all have a focus, okay? The country has a focus. We have an economic recovery agenda that must be realized. And this is to be realized by the workers, okay? So any departure from the expectation is not supported. You will take cognizance of the fact that we have new terms and conditions of service, even the disciplinary procedure code. The disciplinary procedure code that we have is more tight, okay? We had suggested that we revisit it and so forth, but it's being implemented. It leaves less room for discretion. So employees have to be live to this because certain things that would maybe come through with a verbal warning today they'll go straight to a written warning. Certain, things, behavior and so forth, some of them will just attract instant dismissal, summary dismissal. So the disciplinary procedure code that has been put in place is to ensure that we have a civil service that abides by the expectations of the service. The code of ethics also that is in place also is to ensure that we have a civil service that is purely a civil service, to render a service. A situation where you have somebody reporting on duty and they are drunk. First of all, the question is, who needs drunkenness at the office? There is no one. Okay? How do you work when you are drunk? Okay? So these are the things that employees also have to look at. They are the things that employees have to address. As a union, we have come up with a program that we are calling WASA, okay? Workers' Action Against Substance Abuse. This is a project that will deal with the issues of substance abuse within the civil service. We have taken note that the civil service now, attracts very young persons. Our children today, they complete school at a very tender age with good papers, and they find themselves in the civil service. And these are still active bodies. Some would tend to substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, and so forth. We have situations where those in labs, pharmacies, they tend to abuse certain substances. So we do not want to see a situation where employees are just dismissed without us taking a step. So our institution, through the Workers' Action Against Substance Abuse, is to try and give room, first of all, to rehabilitate this person, okay, before they are even subjected to the disciplinary procedures. When we take that action, we believe that will also work towards, building a cadre that will focus on nothing else but their employment. So we appeal to our members and the working fraternity as a whole to ensure that we hold the civil service professional. Not only the civil service, but every workplace must be professional so that we can be able as a country to achieve our objective.
A good initiative there. You talked of the disciplinary code of conduct, and I have heard, yes, from some sectors of the civil service saying the new code is harsh.
Yeah.
It's harsh, it's strict, and all that. What is your comment on that?
Yeah,
what is your position as a union?
We had appealed to government to halt the implementation of the new code until we address the challenges, the observations that have been made. And these are being addressed. We are discussing these issues. But it's operational, okay? We just want to appeal to those who are, in the human resource, the management, and so forth, to realize that as we are implementing, there are certain observations, and these observations will have to help us refine the disciplinary procedure code. But this doesn't mean that it is a leeway for people to do wrong things. Indiscipline is indiscipline. It has to be addressed. Okay? But again, justice has to prevail as we address this, these kinds of behavior. So the code is there. Yes, it's very harsh. Okay, but we are trying to ensure that it becomes a user-friendly code that will not tolerate indiscipline in the workplace. Okay,
another issue that is being spoken of is the retirement age. Retirement age, should we, what is your comment on the retirement age?
Yeah, I'm glad the government has issued a circular. There is nothing that has changed. I think it's just that, when people read, the provisions of the law on retirement age, interpretations are different. But I think the government has done a good job. A circular has been issued to indicate that you can retire at 55, you can retire at 60, you can retire at 65, as long as you follow the requirements when you want to retire at any of those provisions. Now, it's not about really the retirement age. The issue is, am I ready to retire when my time comes? The problem that we had now, the anxiety that was raised was because people thought that, it's 55. If I was expecting to go at 65, now I have to start looking at 55, but I'm not prepared. So what we are telling employees is that assume you are retiring at 55. So prepare yourself as though you are retiring at 55. Though your focus maybe is 65 if you apply and it's approved. Okay? So preparation is what we require for most. And I can state that again as a union. We have come up with a program that we are calling a pre-separation platform. We are working with the International Labour Organization in training employees, preparing them for retirement. Some are, working out right now their business plans and so forth, and they would want to begin doing their businesses while they are in employment, and this is what we encourage. You prepare for your retirement the very moment you are employed, okay? Because when you are employed, you know that you will be coming to the end of your employment life, so people just have to get ready. There is nothing that has changed. Let's read the circular.
Okay. The civil service, they are cardinal in the economic development of our nation. How would you rate the performance of your members across various sectors? I know you are multi-sectoral.
Yeah, well, our performance is good. The civil servants are putting in much under very difficult circumstances. You will recall that in the civil service, the government came up on several occasions with austerity measures, some of them which were going to, make it a bit difficult actually to operate, okay? Some budgets had to be revised, to be revisited. Certain things had to be suspended. And these go to affecting employees. You see, the people out there must know that employees are not only looking at money, salaries and salaries. They are also looking at the equipment to use when they are in their workplaces. A strike can be called just because you have not bought proper equipment, okay? And our people, as I alluded to earlier, are operating in very difficult circumstances. We have several districts that have been created in this country. And infrastructure in most of these districts, is not complete. Some people are operating from tents. Some people are renting houses, small houses, which are serving as district administrations. When you talk of housing, housing is not good, but we have officers there. So when we see sometimes, people demonize the civil service, it pains because you're not looking at the sacrifice that the civil servants out there are making. When you rise up as a politician to say civil servants are thieves, that is not a fair comment. Civil servants are, inefficient. That is not a fair comment, okay? Have you carried out a study to ascertain that civil servants are not efficient? How many have you, found out to be inefficient? Is it everyone? So your comment that is unfair goes to demoralizing those who are hardworking and operating in very, very difficult circumstances. So our people are putting in much. They are working. That's why the government has not collapsed, because the civil service is thriving. Okay, here we are. You are taking out content to the people out there, which the government desires. Okay? If you are inefficient, this wasn't going to happen. You go to hospitals, you find the nurses there, the doctors are there. You go to the ministries, you find staff is there. So if there is inefficiency, it does not need a politician to, pronounce on an anthill that there is inefficiency. It needs the people in management there to take action. And we are happy when we see management that is proactive, that brings employees on track when they err. So our people are putting in much and they have to be commended. There is no clinic that is collapsed or hospital that has collapsed or border that has failed because civil servants are inefficient. So we want to commend them for that.
Mr. Kabisa, we have caught you on the copper belt engaging with your members in the different districts. I want to find out, why is it important for you as union leaders or labor movement leaders to engage with your members?
Yeah, as trade unions, we should not be like politicians who say, the people are saying this, when you have not engaged with the people. There are some politicians who pronounce things from their bedrooms. No, this is what the people are saying. But the fellow has not gone down to meet the people there. Okay? Now, as trade unions, we represent the working class. So we engage with the working class. If there are trade unions that are not engaging with the people, then those trade unions should pull up their socks because they're not doing the correct thing. So our approach is go meet the people, discuss with them on one-on-one. Okay, at times that is, because we are not always there, but we have a structure. Even when I'm not on the copper belt, I can know what is happening in a clinic because we have leadership there that is engaging with our people on a daily basis. Okay, that is working with them. We have structures through up to the national level. So it's very important that we have first-hand information. If we are to engage government, we have to engage government on things that are there, not things that we are dreaming of. You may end up pushing for a condition of service that employees don't even need. So you have to know what the employees need at that particular time. And you can only know that when you engage with the employees themselves.
Thank you very much. Going forward, what should your members or what should the nation at large expect from the labor movement?
The nation as a whole should expect a very united labor movement. I can tell you that unions have started working together. And we are looking forward to a time when unions will start, talking of getting together, narrowing down, destroying some of the smaller entities that are there to create even one, trade union. However, what is happening now is good in that when it comes to issues pertaining to employees, we work together. That is on the workers' side. Again, the nation as a whole should expect a good relationship between the employer and the employees because we have a platform. I talked of the Tripartite Consultative Labor Council that often meets. So you will hardly have an issue go out there that has not been looked at by the employer and the employees. We espouse this partnership. Minister of Labor every time emphasizes on the partnership, the involvement of stakeholders in the running of business. So when the employer and the employees work together and government as the regulator puts in place regulations that facilitate doing business, we expect the country to move forward. So I don't think we will expect to see strikes, okay, in the near future because of the approach that is there, constructive collective dialogue. And if this is sustained, the better. All those issues that would have, impeded this approach, we quickly fish them out, we check them, and we get back to the table and we move together as a team. All of us working under one agenda, and that is the economic recovery of Zambia.
Well spoken, Mr. Kabisa. Lastly, I would like you to give your final comment.
Thank you very much. My comment, first of all, goes to the workers, the working class of this country. We have to work hard. That is number one. There is no room to relent. The employers, on the other side, they have to know that without the employees, they will not realize their profits. And we will not tolerate a situation where profits are realized at the expense of those that generate them. The government, on the other side, we want to say we need an environment that facilitates production, an environment that is conducive for both the employer and the employee to work in. For the people as a whole, Zambia as a country, we have a big challenge, circumstances that cannot be controlled by man are upon us. The climate change and so forth. So we have to tighten our belts. Firstly, hold leaders accountable. Leaders must deliver. Leaders must think. Leaders must provide. Secondly, we do our role to ensure that we protect that which we realize from elements such as corruption, wastefulness. If we get to this as a country, we'll be able to see ourselves, going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabisa. It has been a pleasure chatting with you on The Lens.
The pleasure is mine.
Well, our dear viewers, we would like to thank you for having joined us. On the program today, we had Zambia Union of Government and Allied Workers President, Mr. Muya Kabisa, who was engaging with us on the mandate of the labor movement. From the Ndola Studios, this has been your host, Penlop Chansa.